If you're anything like me, I kind of like to know who I'm following, all right? So when we talk about this follow me stuff a little bit, for the most part, in the background, it's like, well, we're following Jesus. We're following God. We're pursuing that life. And I want to share with you a little bit so you can get to know me, and hopefully over time I get to know you and hear your story a little bit. But I want you to hear the story of, and I'm not saying follow me, but ultimately some of you are going to be looking at me like, who is this guy? Can I trust this guy? Can I respect this guy? And what is he all about? Because all of a sudden he's here, and Cody Toops isn't here, and I see Cody, but can I get to know this guy, and what is his story? And so I'm going to share a little bit tonight about how God has worked in my life and how I felt God continually saying, follow me. And I'll be honest, there's been some awesome times where it's like, sweet God, like that's just perfect. Like I'll follow you anywhere and do anything. And there's been some times where it's been like, really, God? Like you're gonna, really? I followed you, and I know you have my best, but this is hard. This is really hard. So if you have your Bible along, I intentionally didn't put it on, but we're going to first look at the story of a guy named Abram and Abraham in Genesis. So Genesis 12, I'm just going to read a few verses. If you don't have a Bible, just listen. It's story time. And I'm reading from the ESV, so it might not sound the same as what some of you have. It's the call of Abram. Some of you maybe don't even know that Abraham had a first name. Now the Lord said to Abram, go from the country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. In you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot, his brother, went with him. Abram was 75 years old. All right, so hear that. God's calling Abram to leave what he knows, what is safe, at the age of 75. How many of you have grandpas and grandmas that are, or maybe great-grandpas and grandmas? Can you imagine if they had to leave everything because God was saying, leave your land. He just doesn't move around the corner. Like he literally moves to another part of the country. All right? So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abram took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people that they had acquired in Haran. And they set out to go to the land of Canaan. And when they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the palace at Shechem, to the oak of Moreh. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your offspring I will give this land. So he's telling Abram, I'm making a promise with you. You're going to be a great nation, and you're going to get this land of Canaan. So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. And from there he moved to the hill country on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed on, still going toward the Negeb. If you flip through the next chapter, talks about Abram and Sarah. I say Sarai because eventually her name gets changed as well to Sarah. Okay, Abram and his brother get in a spat. They fight. That's in chapter 13. If you keep moving along, Abram has to go rescue his brother. All right, so this stuff starts to happen. It's not easy, but he still is trying to be faithful to this call where God has said, "Follow me. I'm going to make you a great nation. I'm going to give you this land." All right. Like I said, he has to rescue his brother in chapter 14. All kinds of stuff goes on. God goes into a covenant with Abram, talking again about what he's going to give him and how he's going to bless him in chapter 15. Long story. I'm not going to read all of it. Ultimately, there's some frustration, all right? Sarah and Abram still haven't had a baby. And Abram's kind of like, God, come on. What's going on here? We need a baby. Well, so what happens is Sarai gets this idea. She has an Egyptian slave, and she decides to have her slave Hagar actually sleep with Abram and have a baby. That doesn't go so well, all right? Abram's like, come on, God, like I said, you said, follow me, and I'm going to do these things for you. It was about the age of like 85 or 86 when that happened. So it was 10 years after he moved. It's not just like, oh, hey, next week, good to go. Ultimately, we get to chapter 17, and Abram and God are kind of at odds with each other, all right? It's been about 20, 25 years since God made this promise to Abram. He's been faithful because he's moved, but he's wavered in his following. Like you, like me, we waver, right? And God's calling him back in chapter 17 and is making this new covenant with him. And it's no longer just a nation, but nations. So God changes his name from Abram, from noble father is that meaning, to Abraham. And Abraham means father of many. Ultimately, God also changes in this chapter Sarai's name to Sarah. From the name princess to mother of many nations. And God makes this promise. And pretty soon, all of a sudden, Abraham and Sarah are pregnant at the age of 100. Right? Crazy. Crazy. But Abraham has been faithful. There's been rocky path along the way, but Abram has been faithful. Eventually, some of you know the story, God tests Abraham. They finally have this son who's going to be able to carry on and carry on the blessing of Abraham and being the offspring of great nations, many nations. And there's a story of Abraham and Isaac. This is somewhere around, Abraham is 110 to 113. Old, right? But Abraham takes his son Isaac and follows what God has asked him to do. He says, I'm asking you to kill your firstborn, your one and only, your only hope that I've given you, and to sacrifice him, to put him on an altar. Some of you know the story. I'll paraphrase. Basically, they travel. Isaac said, well, Dad, where's the ram or where's the goat? Who's going to be the sacrifice? And Abraham kind of just skirts around the issue a little bit, and eventually they get to the spot. And Abraham ties his son up and puts him on the altar, and he's ready because he knows God is committed to him and he's willing to follow him. He's ready to sacrifice his hope, his son, the promise that God has given him and his wife Sarah. Those of you who know the story, all of a sudden there's a ram in the thicket. And God says, hey, there's the sacrifice. You don't have to sacrifice your son. I've tested you, and you've proven that you're going to follow me. Now I transition. I in no way, shape, or form am comparing myself to Abraham, or Aaron and I, my wife, to Sarah, or anything like that. I don't, not great nations are coming from me. I do only have one boy, though. No, I have not been called to sacrifice him. Don't repeat that. That sounds really bad. But I think there's an amazing story when you look at Scripture of how people in Scripture have said, God has said, follow me, right? And people have been obedient to that. And we see that in the story of Abraham. Leave nation. He did that. Accept the legitimacy of this covenant that God gave him. And follow me and commit to that. So here's the fun part. We're going to dive a little bit into my story. I've kind of, as I've looked back over my life, my story's kind of been summarized by these no's or nevers that I've kind of thrown out there. And I didn't realize it until after those no's or nevers came real, where I was like, oh yeah, I said that. I've probably got more than what I'm sharing tonight, but roughly 5 to 7 no's or nevers where I've seen God continue to lead me and lead our family and lead Aaron and I in our marriage. First off, you got to get to know me a little bit. So I've got a few pictures. First off, there's me at my first birthday up on the top. No, that's not all cake. There's a present there, and that's just a little cake in the front. I'm in the helmet and the diaper. My brother and I, he's a few years older than me. We love to play together on the farm we grew up in central Iowa. I was in a motorcycle accident, pretend motorcycle accident there. My brother's got the helmet on me, and he's got marker all over me, and I was the victim, obviously. So next picture. I had to scan these in, okay? These aren't digital, so I had to scan them in and make sure we could see them. That's my dad. His name is Ron. You can kind of see our family farm in the background. We lived there for about the first 10 years of my life. One day, my dad was out cutting hay, and he ran across this little fawn. And I distinctly remember this because my dad put it in the cab of the tractor and brought it back, and my brother and I cared for it for about a month until one night a raccoon knocked the screen off, and the raccoon got it, so it really wasn't a happy ending. But It was a great picture of a lot of fun we had growing up on the farm. Next picture. Some perms in that bottom picture. That's quality there, all right? So that's my aunt and uncle on the right. They lived in Southern California, and I distinctly remember this trip as a child. I would have been about 8 or 9 at the time, and we were so excited. My uncle and aunt surprised us at the airport with a limo. I'm in the blue jacket down there, the cool-looking one. There's my little sister, my brother, and my mom and my dad. And my brother and I up above, this is at that Christmas. I have no idea why my brother's wearing a Michigan sweatshirt either. Poor fool. He's a devout Hawkeye fan now, just like me. But we got a Nintendo that year, and we were super excited. And it was a great memory. We actually knew we were getting a Nintendo because my brother and I found the present and measured the game cartridges, went to Walmart, measured those. I'll confess, we knew we were getting a Nintendo. I share that picture because that's kind of one of the last really happy memories I remember in the midst of our family. You can go to the next picture. And that kind of became a new reality for our house. At the age of 10, over Christmas break of my 5th grade year, my parents, we knew they'd been arguing. We knew there was difficulty in our house. My brother and I were aware of it. My brother was 13, I was 10. My sister was only 6 at the time. My parents separated over that Christmas break. What a way to spend Christmas break, right? And eventually, over the next 2 years, we're in the process of a divorce. That became our new normal, all right? Doing things with just the 4 of us, my mom, and doing things just the 4 of us, my dad. My sister's not in that picture because I don't think she went on the camping trip that year with the dudes. That became reality for me in my life and wrestling with that. My first no kind of came out of that. My never kind of came out of that. I grew up going to a little school called Pella Christian Grade School. And as a Pella Christian kid, you're never going to go to the Pella Public School. And after my parents separated, they were still figuring out the good old money issues. I loved sports. And the summer between my 6th grade and 7th grade year, I wanted to go to more basketball camps. And money was an issue. And so I had gone to the local college camp, which was pretty affordable, but it wasn't feasible to go to a different camp, University of Iowa or well, why would you go to an Iowa State camp? It just wasn't in the finances. And my mom said, well, what about going to the public school basketball camp? And I didn't have a problem with it. I was just kind of like, yeah, sure, I just want to play basketball. In our little town of 10,000, you didn't cross that line, all right? The Christian school kid didn't go to the public school camp. The public school kid didn't go to the Christian school camp. In fact, the Christian school didn't have a basketball camp. My mom had a connection at work. I knew her son, and so I went. It was the first time in Little Pella history that someone from the Christian school had ever gone to the public school basketball camp. And you know what? There was a group of 7th grade guys there that were awesome. They befriended me. They enfolded me. And as we got to talk over the course of a week, I had a lot of fun playing basketball, but I had a lot of fun getting to know a group of guys I didn't know. And towards the end of the week, they said, hey, they don't have football at Pella Christian. I said, no, we just have football. And they said, well, do you play football? And I said, well, I'm a goalie, but I don't really like it. And they said, well, you should come play football. And I said, that sounds pretty good. And my parents weren't diehard, got to go to Christian school. And so all of a sudden kind of began this, hey, could I go to public school next year so I could play football? And so I went, and I played football. And if you go to the next slide, you can see me, the next picture. There I am in middle school. That's my 8th grade picture up at the top, and you can see me, I'm the tall dude, go figure. I think they just recruited me. They didn't really like me just because I was tall. But that was an AAU team that we were on in middle school, 2 dads that coached us. It was awesome, I'll be honest. It was awesome going to that school. People befriended me, I got to know people right away, and it was this time where I got connected with these youth groups. My friends invited me to their church. I grew up in a Christian home, but the irony was that fall of my 7th grade year, I was going to this public school, and I actually went to the Christian high school for a crusade. It was a guy who was an evangelist. And I committed to my life to Christ at this crusade with 2 of my new public school friends. Kind of some irony there, right? From a Christian school went to the public school, but then went back to the Christian school for a crusade with two of my public school friends. God used it. As I got deeper into student ministry and youth ministry, like a place like this, I met leaders and coaches and mentors. I got connected into going on retreats, going on mission trips, going on a thing called Rocky Mountain High in Estes Park, Colorado, which is a lot like Follow that we do in our denomination here. And God continued to use those events and those things and turn something that I said no into something that was really cool. In fact, the next picture I'll share, there's Erin, my wife. We went to Tennessee together on our denomination's, not Tennessee, West Virginia, to an old coal mining community the summer of 1997, and we met. So the bottom left picture, she would be embarrassed that I had that one in there, we met like the last 2 days of camp. And thank you for the awes, some of you had that. I would have never met her if it weren't for that. It was before good cell phones. It was before good internet. And so we communicated via old school letter writing and phone bills, or like landlines. And I didn't have a computer in my house. She had dial-up, that. Adults, you understand me. Students, not so much. We would rack up $70 phone bills calling each other each month. One year for her birthday, her parents forgave her phone bill. For a year, we had a long-distance relationship and just got to know each other. It was the summer before my senior year and the summer before her junior year. I think you can go to the next picture. There's my senior year. I put that bottom one in there. That's my mom and my dad. And it wasn't too often that happened. And it was kind of a cool senior night for me at our last home basketball game because I was able to have both my mom and dad there and on each arm and supporting me. They both came to games, but it wasn't too often they were that close together to have a picture together with me. And so you name it, I chased a ball or kicked a ball or whatever. I loved sports. It got to this point, my senior year, where I had to figure out what I was doing, right? Was I going to work? Was I going to go to school somewhere? What was I going to do? My brother was at this little school called Dordt College in Sioux Center, Iowa. It's about an hour and 15 minutes away from here. And I said no, not Dork College. Nice try. Dordt with a D. And I said I would never go to Dordt College. Number one, because that was where the Christian school kids went, and I was a public school kid, right? And my brother went there. Why would I go there? I would never go to Dordt College. I looked at 6 or 7 other different colleges. One of them being Dordt, but kind of on the back burner. I even looked at a community college. Potentially was going to play football there for scholarship to try to get a bigger scholarship. It came down to this final point where I had math and science scholarships. I was looking to do engineering. I'm an engineer. You guys know that, right? Okay. I'm not an engineer. Dordt came back. My parents didn't save money for school for me, and it had the best financial aid. It had the best program, and I could play some basketball at the same time. So doggone, there I was going to Dordt College. I said no, but God said yes. I entered Dordt College as an engineering major. All right. I graduated 4 years later with a theology degree, a religion degree, with an emphasis in what I do now, student ministry, youth ministry. I walked on campus that first fall in 1998 and was plugging away. I got to the end of that first semester with my engineering classes, and I was almost ineligible. I was a 3.5 GPA. I had a 27 on my ACTs. But the coach called me in, and he's like, if you don't pass all your classes, you're not going to be eligible for basketball in the spring. That was the last thing on my mind. I hated engineering. It was miserable. I was barely passing two engineering level courses, and then my generals I was slacking off on because I had to put more energy into those other classes. I went home at Christmas break that year. I was just like, God, why did I go to Dordt? What are you trying to tell me? And I remember I had some friends from our church. We were kind of all back together, and then they introduced me to some other people who were going to Central College in Pella, and they said, hey, you should come with us. We're going to this thing in Dallas, Texas called Passion. And some of you have heard of David Crowder Band and Chris Tomlin. And there's a guy named Louis Giglio who spoke. And I remember for the first time seeing real, authentic worship. There were 15,000 college students and college leaders there. And I felt this moment where God said to me, he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Why are you doing engineering?" He said, "You've had people whispering to you in high school about doing ministry. This is what you're supposed to be doing, so figure it out." And that's where God grabbed the hold of my heart, and I went back, and it took me a couple more semesters. There was a semester where I think I did business and accounting because my brother was going to get a good job after his senior year. Then I had business and theology together, and a buddy and I did that together, and people were like, "What are you going to do with that?" And we said, "Well, if worst comes to worst, we'll sell Bibles door to door when we graduate," right? That makes logical sense. Ultimately, you can go to the next slide. There's Aaron and I in prom. I forgot that. That's cute. In college, Aaron and I got engaged. You can go to the next one. There we are in Monterey Bay, California. We actually did get engaged on Lover's Point. It was not planned, but it was found out afterwards. And there's our wedding picture down below. We actually got married at Tut Hill Park right here in Sioux Falls, and had our reception at Prairie Green Golf Course at CJ Callaway's because my wife is from Lenox. Eventually, we got married, and God used this no at Dordt College to catapult me to where I am in ministry. We got to this point after Aaron and I were married, and you can just leave that one up. That's perfect. Where I was getting finished up with my degree. We were maybe thinking about moving to Iowa City, and Aaron was going to transfer to University of Iowa. She was at Northwestern in Orange City, and then had done some community college with her nursing degree. I had some stuff to finish up for a second major, and these things all just kind of fell apart in the spring that year. It wasn't working. It was just missing each other. And so youth ministry mentor of mine said, "Well, apply to churches. That's what you're going to do anyway." And I said, yeah, you're right. So Aaron and I said, "Sweet. The world's our playground. Where are we going to go?" And so we looked at a map and we said, anywhere west of the Rockies, not close to here, sounds good. So I looked at churches, about 10 churches from Colorado all the way to California. And Erin has read a few Nicholas Sparks' book, and she said North Carolina sounds nice too. So I applied for a few positions at churches in North Carolina. All right? And after about 4 or 5 weeks, none of these churches were getting back to me. And so I started calling them. I'm like, "What's going on?" They're like, "Well, we have this position, but we don't really know what we're doing or if we're really going to hire anybody." In the meantime, Erin had a previous roommate who was from Southern California. And she had said, "Hey, Rob, my dad's on a search team at my old church called Long Beach Christian Reformed Church." And I said, "That's great, Tracy. I will never work at a Christian Reformed church because they're connected to the Christian school, and I don't do the whole Christian school thing, even though I went to Dordt." And she said, "Hey, that's fine." As these churches were falling by the wayside and I couldn't really find a job or know what we were going to do, was thinking we were going to have to stay in Sioux Center and I was going to have to keep working landscaping, pushing wheelbarrows of rock around. Randomly, one Saturday afternoon, we were in Walmart, of all places, in Sioux Center, Iowa. And Tracy and her dad were there. Tracy was a softball pitcher for the Northwestern softball team, and Tracy laughed and she said, "Hey, Rob, this is my dad who you don't want to talk to, Randy. He's right here." It's like, "Hi, Randy, how's it going?" He's like, "Hey, Rob," he says, "Tracy's told me about you." We talked. A week later, I had a phone interview. A month later, we were on a plane landing at Long Beach Airport. Aaron and I looking at each other like, "This is awesome, but this is crazy." And by the end of the summer, 2002, you can throw the next picture up. Excuse the budget moving truck, dolly good, hernia bad, right? That's kind of funny. We were moving out of our little basement apartment in Sioux Center, Iowa to Southern California. Our families thought we were kind of nuts. We got to Southern California, and we actually lived in a little community called Bellflower. We lived on the street called Eucalyptus Avenue, and there people have normal-sized lots, but they put 4 houses deep. Nobody has a yard, all right? People from our church lived in the front house. We lived in the third house. People in our church at Long Beach CRC heard we were living on Eucalyptus Avenue, and they said, "You guys are in the ghetto. You need to get out of there." And we're like, "Well, we can't afford anything else." That street actually used to be closed down in the early 90s for gang activity. It was pretty safe where we were at. Anyway, we got to this point the first month we were there, and Erin's on the front step, and she's crying. And I go out, and I'm like, what's wrong? She looks up, and there's helicopters flying around because we're close to a freeway interchange, and she's just like, I just want to go home. Like, babe, this is home. This is awesome. This is Southern California. And it wasn't the easiest thing. It was hard financially. It was hard for us in our marriage, but it was really good for us too, because it got us away from family, and it got us as a husband and a wife to kind of grow together and have to lean on each other. It forced us out of our comfort zone. It forced us to have to find community. We got to a point after about 4 years in where we knew that it was time for us to move on from that church. Nothing bad had happened, but we just felt like we had kind of done what we were called to do there. And so we started looking for what we're going to do next. Still felt like I was called to be a youth pastor at a church, but just wasn't sure where that was at. We preferred Southern California. We wanted to stay in Southern California and tried at all costs to stay in Southern California because we had developed some great relationships and friendships that we still have today with people there. God had other plans. We interviewed that spring about 6 churches. And 3 of them said yes to us, but we said no to them. It just wasn't a good fit. They were kind of all over the country. 3 of them just straight up said no to us. We got to this point where we were just like, again, God, what are we going to do? We feel like we're following you, but we feel like we're at this impasse. Where are you leading? Erin and I prayed about it. Novel idea, right? And within about 48 hours and when we prayed, we both kind of felt this leading where God was saying, you can't just make your plans and not tell the church what you're doing. And so we decided we've got to tell the church that we were serving, Long Beach CRC, that we were making a plan to leave and that we were going to start that process, whether it was a month or 2 months. Within 48 hours of making that decision, I was in my office and I got an email over my dial-up, all right? I opened up the email. It was 4 paragraphs long. This pastor said, you have no idea who I am. I really don't know you except for a resume that was passed on to me. You don't know our church, but here's who we are, here's what we're looking for, and we're interested in talking to you. I just checked off the boxes as I went down the 4-paragraph email. I closed the email, I picked up the phone, and I called Erin. I said, Erin, I know where we're going next. I said, I know exactly what church. She's like, sweet. Where's it at? I said, well, that's what we have to talk about. Remember that place we said we'd never move back to when we moved away from it, Northwest Iowa? I said, it's in Orange City. She goes, you have to be kidding me. Orange City, Iowa? We went, we interviewed. We were there for a long weekend in late May 2006. And Sunday night we had one of our last meetings. And we were driving back to South Dakota, to Lenox. And Erin just said, what do you think? And I said, if we're supposed to be here, I threw out the Gideon fleece, kind of like, hey, God, I'm testing you. I said, if we're supposed to move back, and this is supposed to be the place we're supposed to serve, that God is calling us to, and that we're supposed to follow here. I get on a plane on Tuesday out of Sioux Falls. I said, someone will call us with a job offer, or the head of the search committee will call us before I get on that plane. On Monday night, we got a phone call from the church offering us the position. We'd already had Gracie, which I think we have a picture up of there. I forgot to tell. Gracie was born in California. She's our oldest. She's 10. That was hard for us because we were away from family. We had a great community of friends and support, but we were away from family. Ultimately, we said we'd never move back to Northwest Iowa. Gracie was young. Erin was pregnant with Karis. But by George, we filled up a moving truck again. We went from a 15-foot moving truck when we moved out to California to a 24-foot moving truck when we moved back in the accumulation of things. And we moved back. There we had Karis, I think is maybe the next picture. She's about 1 year old there. Say one can't be plural, right? Couldn't find an appropriate she was born there picture. It was a rough transition. We moved in late July, early August. October 1, it snowed in Orange City. I woke up that morning, I'm like, God, you got to be kidding me. Like, I could go to the beach, I could surf, I could go to Ruby's on the Pier. Southern California was awesome. You've moved us to Orange City for why? We again, Erin didn't necessarily have work right away. She stuck at home with 2 kids. I was loving where I was serving, but we're kind of like, oh God, Northwest Iowa. Really? You had to move us to Northwest Iowa. Ultimately, we got to this point. We again dug in and made connections, made friends, and had this kind of churning. Go ahead and go to the next picture once. There's some of the stuff we did when we were in Orange City. No, that's not Aaron and I arguing. We led a team of 40 students and leaders to Tijuana, Mexico to do a 3-day double-wide house build with an organization called Amor. Was pretty intense, but had a blast. You can go to the next picture. We had Addie while we were in Orange City. The summer of 2009. That same summer, I also led a team to the Central Plateau of Haiti. It was a group of adults and a group of students. There was about 20 of us, and we were a mix. 10 students and 10 adults, and we had a blast. We had some missionaries that we served there at United Christians International. The next summer, you can go to the next picture, Aaron went on a medical mission trip with a group of folks to Lakai. It was way on the southwest side. It would have been about 4 to 6 months. Well, it would have been about 6 months after the earthquake had hit Port-au-Prince. And this was way on a few hours' drive away from Port-au-Prince. But she had a blast serving there with a group of dentists and doctors. I remember this picture, and I remember her coming back from that trip. Not because I was daddy by myself for about 10 days with 3 kiddos, but I surprised her at the airport in Omaha. And I had this stirring in my heart that something was going on. And I said to her, she was surprised to see me, but when she got off the plane and came down, and I said, "Are we moving to Haiti?" And I can't repeat exactly what she said. She'd had a pretty profound experience, but it did include HE double hockey stick. No, God would specifically have to do something crazy for our family or us to ever move to Haiti. All right? Yeah, laugh, Randy. I'm going a little bit long, but I just want to keep sharing here. It would have been the fall of 2011. We randomly got connected to this organization, Children of the Promise. We felt our hearts kind of stirring for Haiti and adoption. And there was this little guy that popped up on Facebook. And I can't tell you his name. He's in the States now, actually lives in Chicago. He had special needs. His special needs was more of a disease that he had, not paralyzed or anything like that. And in Haiti, if you have special needs, you can get adopted a little bit quicker. And so we were open to that. After about a month of kind of walking through what that might look like, we realized that wasn't going to be a good fit in our family. So we said, okay, God, cool. We checked that out, prayed about it. At the same time, Aaron was connected with this organization now a little bit and was on their Facebook feed. And their executive director put out a post saying, we're looking for a nurse, which my wife still is, and we're looking for a property manager. I like duct tape, all right? So she emails me this one day and says, hey, what do you think about this? And I said, you're nuts. I said, sweet, you fit 50% of this job description. I don't fit the other half. In our family, God usually speaks through my wife first and has these promptings and nudges, and then it usually is confirmed in me. And it was crazy. We were in Colorado Springs for her sister's wedding. And we pulled up, we were heading up the mountain to this Young Life camp for the ceremony on Friday, wedding on Saturday. And we pulled up to the stoplight, and there were some guys living under the overpass, some homeless guys. And our second daughter, Karis, she and I are pretty similar, but at the same time, we're kind of oil and water sometimes. She goes, Dad, what are those folks doing? And we made eye contact in the rearview mirror. And I said, well, they're homeless, honey. I said, that's where they live. And she goes, she says, we need to build them houses like the people in Haiti. And my wife elbows me, and she's just like, And I was like, you're still nuts. That next day, Aaron's dad was walking his last daughter, third daughter was getting married, Aaron's sister, down the aisle and just said, hey, can you pray with me a little bit? I'm a little nervous because he was going to pray at the wedding. And so we prayed together. And towards the end of that, after we were talking a little bit, I just said, hey, Aaron and I are thinking about moving to Haiti. I was like, what just came out of my mouth? I vomited on him, verbal vomit. And I said it out loud to my father-in-law. I texted Erin really quick, and I said, I just told your dad we might move to Haiti. She's getting her hair done and makeup done, and she's like, you did what? On the day of his last daughter's wedding? It was crazy. We got back from that, and the next weekend, Erin had shared with a team member of the trip that she'd been on the summer before. And this friend emailed her and said, hey, we want to bless you. We don't know what's going on exactly, but we feel like we need to give you $1,500 for whatever God's going to do. And I, that day previously, as I was continuing to grow into this idea, had just put American Airlines tickets on reserve for $1,250. We had to take a little commuter plane, and our total bill for airfare was $1,495. I fell to the floor. I was like, you're nuts. I'm nuts because I haven't been listening. That night we went to a friend's house, and they said, hey, we just were sharing, hey, what should we do with this? And they're like, if you guys decide to go, we'll give you $100 a month. We're like, stop. Justin, Ange, stop. We don't even know if we're going. We flew out 5 weeks later in late January 2012 to go check this place out. And when we were flying back, we knew we were going to be back there. By August 2012, you can show the next picture. There's Toby, or better not forget about Toby. He was born. He was 14 months old when we moved to Haiti. You can go to the next picture. There's our family. August 30, 2012, we moved to Haiti. It's called Missionary Flights International. It was kind of a puddle jumper cargo flight. But within 7 months, our family had raised $50,000 and was on the ground. And we felt like that's where God was leading us. That was our call, right? It wasn't easy. People asked us, you're really going to take your kids to Haiti with you? What if something happens to them? What if they get killed? What if something happens to you? What if you get killed? We're just like, at this point, we're crazy if we say no to it, because this is where God is leading us, and God's saying, follow me, right? Haiti, I'll be honest, was probably one of the craziest adventures we would ever do. You can just leave it on that picture for a little bit. Within the first 3 months of being there, we had this cholera outbreak. And cholera is basically where you get some really nasty diarrhea. And it was in our kids. We had 70 kids in the orphanage that we were at. Half of them got it. So we had 3 rooms. This is over Christmas, our first year there. We had 3 rooms based on severity in our volunteer house. Volunteers don't come at Christmas. It's just our team of international staff. All right? We have 9 babies and toddlers on IVs. We have an in-between room where kids are borderline whether they're going to get better or whether they're going to go on IV. And then we have our almost ready to go back into the baby house room. You go to the next picture. This is Gracie, our oldest. This was literally 10 days after cholera had hit. She got malaria. It's just like we were just starting to recover, get our energy back. We weren't sleeping at all during cholera. She was green. She literally was green. And she looked at Erin one night and she's like, Mom, I need an IV. And Erin's like, I'm going to go talk to the other nurse because I don't know if Mom feels comfortable giving you an IV. We're just kind of like, God, what? Really? Really? If you go to the next picture, we took a little pause. This is a little side story, and I'll make it quick because I'm going really long. I said I'd never go to seminary. I started Bethel summer of 2008, and I completed my first year in Haiti, summer of 2013. Go to the next picture. Here's some fun stuff, a couple slides of Haiti. So there's Gracie and Karis riding in the back of a truck coming back from the Dominican Republic. Looks like a troll doll. Out cold. Next picture. Here's our family at a really cool tourist spot that you'll probably never go to unless I take you there. It's called the Citadel. Really cool French fort. Next picture. Here's me juggling cannonballs. I'm not juggling, there's only one. This is at that French fort. Really, really cool. You go to the next picture. This happened on May 5, 2014. I got burned in Haiti. If you really want to see my feet later, I'll show them to you. All right? I got burned by hot oil. And I'll tell you the whole story another time, but there's no carpet in Haiti. It's tile. It happened in our house. It was one of those, why God moments. Like, God, we're faithful. We're doing what you wanted us to do. We moved to Haiti. We already at this point, early in 2014, knew that we were leaving in December of 2014. I had to come back to the States because ultimately, if you go to the next picture, I had to have a skin graft. You can see on my bottom leg there where they took the skin from and then they put it on my right foot. Then you can see the last picture. University of Iowa. It was great because I got to go to University of Iowa is where I ended up at to have my skin graft. I was so excited when I was done and they kicked me out of there. But for 10 weeks that we thought we were going to be in Haiti, we had to be in the States. And we loved being in the States, but it was 10 weeks that we were missing. We were missing serving. We were missing connecting with the Haitian folks that were investing in. And it was a bummer. It was a really big bummer. We saw probably, Aaron and I were counting up the other day, and we lost count. It sounds really sad. We probably saw between 12 to 15 kids, infants and toddlers, die, either connected to our organization or in our organization, in our orphanage. And there's no cause of death. In fact, a guy on our staff, an international or a Haitian staff member who was good with woodworking, made the coffins, and we did the ceremonies. And a lot of times the undertaker at the cemetery that we took the kids to bury, he would dig up one of our old coffins. It wasn't a pretty place. And at times we just said, God, why? Why did you send us here? If you go to the next picture, this was the last week we were there. And it's kind of comical because we continued to kind of ask these whys when God, we know you're calling us away from Haiti. There I am with my scar from my burn. Karis, 6 or 8 weeks left, broke a bone in her foot. Toby, our little guy, broke his arm. And we're just like, this is nuts, God. But if you asked me right now, would I do it all again? Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Because I know God was faithful throughout all the goods and the bads in that situation. We moved back. You can go to the last picture. Here we are a couple Sundays ago. One of the no's I said as we started to transition back from Haiti into the States, we moved back last December, was I don't know if I can ever work in a church again. I don't think I ever want to work in a church again. And then as I decided maybe I would work in a church again, that God was getting me back into that, I was like, I'm never going to work specifically in student ministry again. Well, here I am, there I am, right? My story is one where it's not all gravy, it's not all roses. Okay? I come from a divorce, broken family. My dad's on his third marriage. My mom is on her second marriage. Aaron and I's marriage hasn't been perfect. We've had some really interesting adventures, as you've seen. But God has been faithful through the ups and through the downs. And He continues to say, follow me. He continues to say, pursue me with everything that you have. That is my hope, and that is my prayer for each one of you. That is my hope and my prayer as you come to this place, as you have people investing in you like your life group leaders, or maybe it's your mom or your dad, or maybe it's an older brother or sister, or maybe it's a coach, or maybe it's a teacher. That they're speaking into you and in helping you say, God, I'm going to continue to follow you. All right? It is 8:28. You've got maybe 5 minutes, just quick, to touch base with your life groups. My apologies for going a little bit long. I didn't think I'd be that winded, but I obviously am. Thank you for staying awake. Let me close in prayer, and then you can go find your life group leaders. God, we thank you that you are sovereign, that you are faithful, and that you are in control, and that we are not. I pray for each person here, each adult, each student, wherever they are at, whatever they are going through. Whether it's a high point on the roller coaster or whether they're way at the bottom. That still in the midst of that they can say, blessed be your name, and that they can know that they are still being faithful to what you've called them to. If there's someone here that doesn't know you, God, may they talk to someone tonight. May they find me. May they find their life group leader or another adult leader and just say, what is this all about? This following me. Kind of nuts. Kind of sounds like a sweet adventure. I want to know how to do it. What does it look like? If there's someone here, would you move them tonight to ask those questions as well? Bless our conversations and our words as we talk for a little bit and connect in life groups. Amen.